Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Pop to Culture. I'm here today with Alex and Chad, and we're continuing our Rebuild of Evangelion discussion. This time, we will be discussing Evangelion 3.0, You Cannot Redo, or Q, depending on if you're reading the English localization title or the original Japanese title. This is my favorite one, too.
Stands for quickening. Why is there, what is that? Does that mean something?
Yeah, so the way that the movies are formatted, or at least were intended to be formatted, is based off of, I believe, kabuki, like the acts in kabuki theater.
Okay.
And I forget the actual terms. I am not certain I want to say it in case I mess it up, because I think I'm mixing it up with numbers. But Q is like the middle portion of that format, which is why it's labeled Q for the Japanese title.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes,
cool.
I love this movie.
The quickening is Highlander.
Nice.
Okay.
Very cool. But yeah, so this one is the best one. I will take no exceptions to this. It is the best Rebuild movie. Not 2.0 like everyone else says. It is this one.
It's the bleakest one.
It is the bleakest one.
Even the color tone changes, and it's always been kind of like blue, green, and very colorful, and this one is like really, really brown.
Yeah.
Right?
It's really brown. It's really desaturated. It's really sad.
It's really sad. You feel those colors.
Best one.
Now we know what Celia's state of mind is.
Just forever sad.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But a part of me, like while watching it, though, like maybe like the first time or the second time, maybe both, I was like, is this a dream sequence? Is this really, did the third impact really happen? And was it really like this? I mean, I know how it ended the last time, but it just seemed so different. And I was just like, I want them back over there in that world, with all the buildings and stuff like that. So it's very jarring.
Yeah, it definitely throws the audience for a loop and feels really surreal at first, almost like, wait, this is the state of things now, which I think is one of the things that makes this movie really great, is the audience is at a complete loss for a good part of the movie. Yep. And so things that do happen within the film and then in the film that follows, the impact of that or the payoff of those things, I feel like is much stronger because you have no idea what's going on. So Chad, even though I just said we have no idea what's going on, why don't you summarize this movie for us and what happens?
Why don't you tell us what's going on, Chad?
Let everybody know. Well, guide basically, it's like it hits the audience with like a huge, like, what the hell? Because what transpires is we haven't quite an interesting action sequence at the beginning that takes place in orbit. And we find out that Asuka and Mari are actually trying to retrieve something from Earth's orbit. Do they say that it's Unit 1? Do they reveal that it's Unit 1 or that it's Shinji that they're after?
Yeah, Asuka actually yells, "Do something, stupid Shinji!" Like while they're trying to fight off the angel that's attacking.
Okay, all right. So yeah, so they're trying to get Shinji, and they eventually succeed after a very interesting action sequence. And but when Shinji is rescued and he's back with the rest of his old friends and crew and stuff like that, it's told to him that it's been 14 years since the last time he was they saw him or something like that. The last time they knew that the last time I guess they saw him.
Yeah.
Is how it is. And they're no longer part of Nerve. Misato looks completely different. She's now the captain of a ship. He finds out that he's actually on board it and all this sort of stuff. And it is just like one hell of a disorienting thing. And of course, we're finding all of this out as Shinji is finding this out. So it's very disorienting to us too, because we have no idea what happened. Last we saw these characters, Shinji was trying to rescue Rei, and then impact happens, and yeah, everything goes for crap, and then you get like a little thing at the end with Kaworu, and that was it. And so we're just like completely kind of like thrown for a loop, and we don't know what's going on, which is kind of cool in a way. It sort of puts us kind of in Shinji's headspace, and we have to sort of stumble through everything. So it's a pretty cool, pretty daring way to open a movie.
Yeah, I agree. It's really tough seeing the characters that we really love too acting like completely different people, because so much time has passed and they've experienced events that neither Shinji or the audience knows about yet. So when we do encounter, we encounter Misato, Asuka, the original bridge crew, like they're all completely changed because of whatever has happened in 14 years prior. So when we see them, we're expecting them to be like their old selves, but they're not. And it's heartbreaking, but also just makes you really curious, because then it's like, I want to know what happened. Like, why are they the way they are?
Yeah. What did you do to my Misato? She's just totally different. I mean, did they even explain why they look the same? I know they are saying like it's like some kind of because they were like the pilots of the Evangelions, but was it explained any further than that, or?
Yes, it's the curse of the Evangelion. So people who pilot them are cursed with appearing the age when they pilot them. Like they don't age at all. Which is why Asuka is like, she's like 30 something, I think, by the time we're in Rebuild 3.0. But she still looks like she's 14.
Huh. I don't know about that. I mean, I understand it, but I don't know about that kind of life. It's crazy. It's like
right.
being a vampire or something.
Right. And it is something that comes into play later. It's a massive spoiler for Thrice Upon a Time. But it is kind of odd that they're only just introducing it now instead of mentioning it at some point prior. Especially as we're already getting this other information thrown at us about, how everyone's changed and nothing is the same, and Shinji's still trying to figure it out. We're trying to figure out where the hell we're at in time and space also, so adding one more piece of information that seems really confusing is also just kind of like, what? Like, it feels weird.
I also understand why you would do something like that from a writing perspective too, right? Because you want to tell the story of your characters going through a lot of things that young people go through, and like trying to deal with that and maturing, and then coming to the end of the story when they become adults. You don't want them to become adults in the middle of your story when you're telling that tale. So I think that they came up with this in order to get around that, so that it could still do a 14-year jump in the narrative without sacrificing the character stories that they wanted to tell for our three main characters.
Yeah, I think so too. Because the reality is that if they wanted to keep it to where everyone is looks familiar and is familiar, they would have done that for everybody. Like, they would have applied the curse to everyone that's ever come in contact with them.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone else is significantly different. Like Ritsuko, her hair is cut short. She's got wrinkles. Misato's got wrinkles. I don't know what happened to Maya. Maya is a very, very bitter woman when we encounter her again in 3.0. And she just looks eternally angry, and she's always complaining about young men. So I don't know what happened to her.
I know some women like that, so it's the same. If it's the same thing, it could be.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, and even then, when Shinji does return and sees everyone again, he's not being welcomed. He's being treated like a hostile.
Yeah.
You know,
Insane.
they separate him from everybody. They put the DSS choker around his neck, which will blow him up. Like it's an explosive that he's wearing, and they use it as a threat and an ultimatum to prevent him from piloting. You know, but they haven't. You know, at that point, we don't know why they don't want him to pilot it. But yeah, that is also very jarring. Where all these familiar people are like, "Nope, you're an enemy. You are dangerous." And we're going to keep you as far away from Evangelions and ourselves as we possibly can, like to keep ourselves safe.
Don't get into the robot, Shinji. You know, and he just woke up.
Telling him the exact opposite of what they've always been telling him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is awesome. Which is a great way to, you know, just like really mess with your story and your character.
Right. I think so too.
What was the second attack? When did that come in?
Well, the first battle was actually, and this is interesting because it was fought with the ship, which is called the Wunder.
The Wunder.
And
the Wunder.
They actually destroyed the Angel themselves without an Evangelion.
Yeah.
So that's really different too, because we've always been shown that it's like only the Evas that can destroy these angels, and here, you know, Misato is running a ship that can like blast an angel to, you know, to hell, literally. Yeah. And so that's kind of that's what happens with that battle. And then Shinji gets sort of like rescued, I guess.
Yeah. So the organization that attacks them and sends all those creatures is Nerve. They're attacking them and sending drones after them to retrieve Shinji. And a very familiar face retrieves him from the Wunder. In a very familiar voice, it's Rei inside Evangelion Mark 9.
So we think that it's Rei, right?
Yes. Especially since, like, I know Shinji was looking for her everywhere because he rescued her, and he's like, where's Rei? Where is she? Apparently she was not retrieved with Unit 1, even though he rescued her. So hearing her voice, he thinks, oh, it's her. Like, this is my friend. This is my teammate. You know, I'm going to go with them. And this scene in particular makes Misato's like hard, cold exterior make a little bit more sense. And it makes you realize that's not who she is. Right? You get kind of this glimpse into her old feelings for Shinji as Shinji is escaping. And even though Ritsuko is telling her, you know, pull the trigger on the DSS choker, like stop him so he doesn't get another Evangelion, she hesitates and lets him escape.
She couldn't do it.
You know, even though she's angry at him for what occurred, you know, during Near Third and how everything has changed because of his choice and what he did, she still won't kill him because there's still a part of her that cares about him. It's so good. Do you see why I love this movie? There's such good characterization, and it's so subtle that if you like blink, you might miss it. But it's so good. I love it.
Yeah. And that whole, like what we just described too takes up like a good chunk of the film too. That's the kind of thing that's crazy about it. When I was rewatching this, I didn't notice how much of the film, that whole section that we just described takes up like a third of the film. And but it doesn't feel like that when you're watching it, because it's just like you're so disoriented. You're eager to see what happens next, where this goes, what happened to everybody, and all that sort of thing. It just grips you, and like you go through the first half hour of this film like it's 5 minutes. I found that anyway. I don't know about anybody else, but I really found that. I found it was just so crazy. I didn't even realize how long it was. But when I rewatched it recently last week, it became like so apparent. I was like, holy smokes, that's like 35 minutes or something like that of time. It was crazy. And it didn't feel that way because it goes like from the opening action sequence then Shinji's on the ship. He's disoriented as hell. Doesn't know what's going on. To like the next action sequence, and then he's rescued, and then it ends. That whole sequence ends, and it just doesn't feel that long. But it's just it's amazing. Really good, really well put together. I really liked it.
Well, I was gonna say so it's kind of sad that Shinji goes from this place where all his friends hates him, and then he goes to this other place where he's thinking like, oh, Ray's here, we're cool, right? And then she's like totally like so far away from him, she's just like, is that an order? Like, what do you want from me? Like, totally devoid of any emotion towards him, right?
Right.
And then and then he meets what do you call it, Kaworu, which is like gives him all the attention that he needs, and it's just like, oh, I'm gonna hang out with this guy. Like, this is the only person I could turn to,
because he's the only person not angry at him.
Yeah, of course you're gonna like just just go towards him, because he gives you the conversation, he gives you that caring feeling, and like it's just everything that he needs right now,
Yeah, I totally agree, because even when he does return to Nerve with Ray and meets up with Kaworu and sees his father again for the first time, it's back to the same thing where his father says, I need you to pilot the Ava, because the new unit that he wants Shinji to pilot, Unit 13, takes two. It takes two pilots for it to operate. And so that's why he tells them like, oh, you're going to be with Kaworu. And they start spending more time together because they have to work together to pilot it. But it's just more of the same. Even though time has passed, very little has changed. And in fact, I think it actually went backward. Where we talked about in 2.0 how Gendo and Shinji, even though it was super awkward, they had that moment where they attempted to try to connect at Yui's gravesite. But now it feels like all of that is completely undone when you encounter Gendo in this movie. And he really just wants Shinji to pilot the Ava so he can get what he wants, regardless of what's going to happen to his son.
So I wonder if like that first mission was actually Gendo going after, or they knew that he was going to go after Shinji, and they had to get Shinji before he does, right? Because like they don't really have a use for Shinji. The what's that other team called? Like this is Nerve, and that was Will. Yeah.
So, WILLE.
Yeah.
I think they pronounce it Will in the movie.
Yeah. So yeah, they really had no use for him. So it was just like to take him away from Nerve.
Yeah.
To take him out of play, basically. Make sure that he couldn't.
He wasn't really aware of that the fact that Nerve is like the enemy, I guess. Or if, on Will is the enemy, according to Nerve, right? Because they're sending drones after them. It's insane.
Well, and it's in this movie that it becomes apparent that Gendo has descended even further into madness. Like, we already knew that he had some pretty lofty goals and was using Celia and access through Nerve to try to achieve his goals anyways. But in this one, you find out that he is thoroughly intent on activating the Human Instrumentality Project and really just eliminating humanity as a whole so that he can be reunited with Yui. And that he has kind of lost his humanity himself because he's not thinking about anything else. He's so hyper-focused on this one thing that he's willing to get rid of everyone else in the world just to have his wish fulfilled.
What would you do, Celia, if that was you?
Not eliminate all of humanity.
Oh, you mean just grieve like everybody else? What's wrong with
like
you?
A normal human being. Someone, I don't know, like someone in the past 14 years, maybe they could have, like, I don't know, given Gendo the phone card for a good therapist or something, help him work through his loss. Clearly, he's a man in pain. But instead of working through his issues like a normal person, he's just going to wipe out all of humanity.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't normal. That's the thing.
Of course, that's the thing. Yeah, he never was like a normal person and stuff like
until
that.
he met his wife, Yui.
And don't we see that kind of play out in real life too?
Yeah.
Wait, are you talking about me? What?
Whoa, what?
What are you talking about?
Whoa, that took a turn.
That's close to home, Chad. Come on.
That's an even bigger twist than the opening of this movie, man. That just like
Right?
blew my mind. Is there anything you want to tell us, Al?
Yeah, I'll tell you about how Shinji and Kaoru figure out how to work together to the piano. Did Shinji did he have like previous piano? I forgot if he even played piano in the series.
I don't remember if they mentioned that in the rebuilds, but I know in the TV show he used to play cello.
Oh, okay.
So he had a music background in the TV series. I don't know about rebuilds, just because I don't think there's been time to bring it up at any point.
They don't imply that he has any sort of training. In fact, Shinji being Shinji, he says, "Yeah, I don't know if I can play this and stuff like that." And Kaoru just tells him, "You don't have to play really well. You just have to play what you feel, something that feels, something that makes you feel good." Sort of thing. That's what's important.
And that's what makes it such a good scene.
Kawaru's the best.
And I'm not just talking about this like on a BL level, because I know a lot of people really like that scene between Shinji and Kaworu, because it's like, oh my god, they're so in love. But no,
two guys in love, yeah.
Kaworu meets Shinji at where he's at. Which like that doesn't happen for Shinji at all in this movie or in the TV series. No one meets him where he is at personally, and where he, because there's really a point where when you're struggling with some of the things that he does, where he wants to connect but still feels isolated and all these things, that it can be hard to reach out to other people and feel like he can trust them and feel like he belongs. And Kaworu goes, "That's okay. You're here. I'm going to be here too." And even as he's playing, even though Shinji is playing like this really simple melody compared to Kaworu, he's just doing that. Kaworu's like, "I love your music. I love it. It's a wonderful sound." So, yeah. It's so good.
Awesome.
And then I guess Shinji starts to question like what happened to the outside world. It's funny because I forgot to mention this on the last show that we did about too. The first movie and most of the series, like the cities, they always felt kind of empty, and it made me kind of question: is this just a nerve facility, or is this actually a bustling metropolis? And then part 2, you actually get to see all those people in the cities actually moving and working, and in the subways and all that stuff, And then I was like, oh shit, this feels a lot better. Like now, like the Tokyo 3. Feels like Tokyo, like it feels like people live there, and then they totally wipe it out in the third movie. Just like, like I just got what I wanted, just that feeling of this, like they're finally like animating all the people in the city, and they kill them off in this movie. It's cruel. These movies are cruel, I tell you.
Yeah.
But they're good.
now that they have all the budget they could possibly ask for.
Yeah.
Now everybody's dead, so they can't animate everybody.
Yeah.
It's true though. It's an interesting observation, especially given this, like how static the original television series is, because they saved I remember even when Evangelion was first airing and stuff like that, it got a lot of how should I say, criticism, or it was mocked, not even criticism, it was just outright mocked for its long lingering, slowly panning or slowly pushing in or slowly pulling out shots where nothing's really happening except a sense of like atmosphere or characters narrating what they're thinking about, what they're talking about, or what they're feeling. And it goes on for a long time. And if you're into the story, it's not a problem.
No,
But
I
I
thought it
know
was
for some
genius.
people who are like who didn't connect with Evangelion, they were like, I can't stand these long extended periods of the show where literally nothing is happening but like a disembodied voice is speaking over like slowly panning images of not much animation happening at all, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was brilliant, like
Yeah,
for
to me it was
for Anno and everybody else to build the show, because they were able to save so much of their animation budget for the moments that really mattered. And that's one of the reasons why like so many different like well animated sequences in the original show still hold up really nicely to this day,
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't do like, they managed to figure out a way to tell a story with an animation style that saved them a ton of money.
mhm.
And yeah, but like you said, now that we have all the budget we could hope for in the movies, yeah, the narrative has turned in a way where everybody is dead.
But you know what, though, even though I value what Kaworu does to boost Shinji's ego and really help him feel valued, that doesn't mean there aren't consequences to his actions. And like Kaworu, when he presents it, he doesn't get angry at him or really present it in a judgmental way. It's just very matter of fact. It's this is the way the world is because of what you did. And not, being like, you did this, you're a bad person or what you did was wrong. It's just, this is what you did.
This is what happened.
This is what happened, but that's something though that I think is really hard for Shinji to come to terms with by the end of this movie, because when you get to the events that occur at the end, and when you encounter Shinji again and thrice upon a time, like, it hits him hard and it really sinks in just what he has done. Especially because in this movie, really, Shinji and Kaworu are trying to undo what happened with Third Impact. It feels like there's a way that Shinji can find some sort of redemption and fix things, with their mission to go get the two lances, the Lance of Longinus and the Lance of Cassius. But ultimately, when that ends up failing, Shinji has nothing. And then he's left to deal with the consequences without someone who will support him through it, without necessarily coddling him or trying to be like, oh, it's okay. Because Kaworu doesn't do that either. He doesn't say, oh, it's okay, this shit happens, because it doesn't just happen, But it's still a very real thing that has affected everybody. And it's changed the course of life as they know it.
Mm-hmm. So frustrating. Like Shinji, like really wanted to make that whole two spears thing happen, even though he was already told like, oh, those aren't this. There's like, what is it, like one spear only, and it was like a replica of the other. And then he just insisted. I understand that he was so desperate to undo things,
right?
But like that was the impatience that got you there in the first place, right? It was like you acting on your own and not listening to anybody is what got you there. Like you'd think that you'd learn from that, but
right.
he just kept on going towards it.
Yeah, well, and if you think about it, like, even though Shinji is technically 14 years older than when we last saw him, he hasn't had any opportunity to grow up.
It's true. He was still at the same place.
He's still the same boy.
That's true. He was still in the same place that he was when we left off. So can't really expect him to grow.
Right? And especially because, like, I feel like Shinji thought, even though Kaworu was saying, these aren't the spears that I thought they would be, and we need to wait. Like, we need to stop and reconfigure. Shinji's like, no, I can fix this. I'm going to undo everything. I'm going to save Ayanami. I'm going to save my friends. I'm going to fix the world.
Yeah.
And really, maybe it went to his head a little bit. That idea of being the hero.
A lot, I would say.
And in the end, he just screwed it up even more. And he lost Kaworu in the process.
Well, it would be very self-validating if he could pull it off, right? Like,
right.
It would. I'm sure in Shinji's mind, it'd probably be like, oh, this will make everything worth it then. All the shit that happened, all the things that went wrong and stuff like that. If I could pull this off, it's just like it all has a meaning. It all has purpose, and so do I, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know a lot of people in life feel that way, actually. That sort of.
Are you talking about me, Chad?
It's not
Stop it.
always. It's not always about you, man.
I'm just kidding. All right.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, we're at the sad part of the movie now.
Yeah.
When
Wait, this is the sad part?
This is the saddest part, okay? When we lose Kaworu.
Oh.
It's the
Oh.
saddest part of the movie when we lose Kaworu. Especially because he tried so hard to make Shinji happy.
He
Very
should learn.
sad.
He should learn. There's no making Shinji happy.
Maybe that's the lesson here, is that Kaworu can't be a fixer. He can't be a fixer and fix Shinji. Shinji has to do it on his own.
Yeah.
But yeah, when Shinji and Kaworu descend into Central Dogma to retrieve the spears and realize they're not the correct spears, Rei actually joined them on this mission in Mark 9. Mm-hmm. She decapitates Evangelion Mark 6, and the 12th angel appears, and Unit 13 absorbs the 12th angel into it, which turns it into a divine being to start another impact.
Again.
And Kaworu realizes that not only was he the first angel, but he has been cast down to become the 13th angel, which I think is the first time that this has happened in Evangelion, where you've had a repeat like that. Because Kaworu is technically the first, because I believe he's a being of Adam, if I'm remembering right. And Adam was always listed as the first angel, with Lilith being the second. And so it's kind of like Kaworu fell from grace before he died, which makes it like especially more tragic, in addition to Shinji screwing everything up. Yeah. And then Kaworu dies. He gets blown up by the DSS choker. And it's not like an off-screen, like sudden thing, or even like a short moment. It is gruesome. There are bits of flesh stuck to the window next to Shinji.
Yeah.
It's so tragic, especially because Shinji's like crying. He's like, no, Kaworu, no, and like can't reach him because of the barrier between their two cockpits. And Kaworu just blows up in front of him. It is so sad. Very traumatic. Like, I totally understand why Shinji is the way he is by the time we get to Thrice Upon a Time. This kid has seen some shit, like some really intense stuff.
This shit no one has ever seen before, that's for sure. It's just like, for a guy, like, how do you prepare for seeing all that stuff,
Right?
That's sort of like the story conceit of something like Evangelion too. It's just like, it's, at its core, it tells like the story of, Shinji and of course the other characters and stuff like that, and them dealing with their own like problems before any of this ever came about. His family problems, his own personal issues and stuff like that. And so much of the story of Evangelion is about mental illness and trauma and, learning to, deal with life and whatnot. But then you have all this sort of stuff on top of it. It's just like crazy. It's like, man, even the most well-adjusted adult in this world would go freaking crazy having to deal with some of the shit that Shinji has to deal with in this series, just because of the sci-fi nature and the apocalyptic world-ending events that happen throughout this story is kind of crazy. So
yeah, it's nuts. Oh man. Well, and when Kaworu dies, Unit 13 awakens, since it's absorbed the 12th angel and now the 13th angel, because Kaworu was inside Unit 13 when he died, and begins the 4th impact. We get another one of these.
No, it's like no one talked about the 4th impact in the series.
Right? I don't think we made it that far in the other series. So Rebuild definitely moves a lot faster and a lot further than the TV show, because we get to the 4th impact. And during the 4th impact, Unit 13 awakens. Rei loses control of Mark 9. And the Mark 9 actually attacks the Wunder, which also appears as this is happening, to try to take over the ship. So Rey ejects from the Mark 9. Asuka tries to stop it with Unit 2, but isn't successful. And it's actually kind of sad too, because she says before she blows up Unit 2, she's like, "I'm so sorry, Unit 2," and then just turns it into a bomb, basically, and also ejects from her unit as well. Let's see. Mari rescues Shinji by ejecting his cockpit from Unit 13, but yeah, I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, I don't know if this was actually going to do anything, because by the end of it, they're all unsure of what to do next. Asuka, Shinji, and Rey are stuck on a beach by the time everything is said and done. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. They don't have their Evangelions. And their very, very specific skill set, which is being an Evangelion pilot, is now completely useless. And they're in a world that has changed so drastically that really all they can do is just start walking.
And what about that scene with Kaji and Misato doing it?
You mean the absent one?
Wait, what? When did this
you guys
happen?
didn't watch the uncut director's
Was there a
version?
Was there something, a post-credit sequence that I didn't see?
I was about to say, did that sequence happen to be on a website that starts with P and ends in hub, Alex?
What side is that, Celia?
We got to make sure we get these URLs right for the people who are listening.
Right?
Well, OnlyFans listen to us.
I see what you did there.
What a terrible turn this took. I was just talking about how tragic,
how sad this movie is,
and how sad this is.
That's why we needed this. Because
Alex is like,
crazy.
"Hey, did you see Kaji and Misato doing it?"
You're the one that brought it up. I didn't even know I missed that whole thing.
We needed a break because the ending of this movie is fucking brutal.
Yeah. And really, it is all the way through. There's really no break. There's not even really much of like a comedic, even for comedic breaks and comedic timing, there's really not any opportunity for that. It really is just bleak from start to finish. And it's really heavy emotionally. But that's one of the things I love about it.
Yeah, that's one of the selling points of it, actually. I mean, that's why this is some of the stuff that we come to Evangelion for. This sort of thing, because you can't get this sort of stuff anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right.
If you want to see this kind of character development and you want to see these sorts of issues be dealt with by different characters and whatnot, maybe learn something about yourself too while you're watching. I mean, that's good. That's why it's like, it's always a double-edged sword with Evangelion. It's always like, I love watching the show. I love watching these rebuild movies. I love as much Evangelion. Well, I'd like to think that I love as much Evangelion as I can get, but it's like, man, it can be draining at times. Taxing, when you're watching this stuff, because it is like, it is intense. It's a lot to go through. It's a lot to process. You can feel yourself going up and down, and hitting these different points emotionally as you're watching it. If it's something that you get invested in, and Evangelion is definitely something that I get invested in a lot. So it's it can be fatiguing to go through.
Absolutely. And I totally understand that, because when I rewatched Evangelion last year on Netflix, I binged it in 2 days, which I don't recommend. Crazy. Don't ever do that. I was sobbing through the last half because it's that intense. It really just draws that cathartic response when you consume it that close, in such a short period of time. Because it is really draining. And even when you look at other installments, I really think that 3.0 emotionally is pretty comparable to End of Evangelion. I know End of Evangelion is a lot more gruesome because there's so much more stuff that happens to our characters in our main cast. A lot of people die, a lot of people experience very severe, attacks and, are maimed and just treated in these really awful ways. for the sake of demonstrating how bad things are getting because of what's happening leading up to Third Impact. But really just the emotional drain watching it all happen. I think 3.0 is pretty close. I don't think it's on the same level, because there is something to be said about the extreme violence in End of Evangelion that just adds on top of the bleakness. But 3.0 just keeps on going and doesn't stop and doesn't give you a break, much like End of Evangelion.
Oh, it gives you a break. It's the one that needed the most resolution. And how much of a break do we get from watching this movie to the next movie? I was just like, it was just such a like they got stuck on a beach, and it's like a cliffhanger, and then it's like you had no idea how long you were gonna wait until the fourth movie,
right?
You know what I mean? It was just like, I think that was just like torture. Like, oh man, this is where we leave off. I mean, like part 2 had a cliffhanger, like what happened to Rey and Asuka and all that stuff, but like this one was so bleak, and you just needed that like that ounce of hope from Evangelion to appear, like as fast as you can have it, but it took forever. Oh my god. Like, this
I
is
think
the
you
worst.
can feel I think you can feel that too from a lot of people as well. Like we've seen, like I'm sure the two of you have read like a lot of reviews and blogs and watched a lot of videos on YouTube and stuff from a lot of our favorite creators that we follow and whatnot, and seeing their reactions and stuff. And there's almost like this sense of relief that came with this film.
Oh yeah,
this final film, the fourth one. It was like everybody was just like, and there's a lot of people saying, thank you Evangelion, goodbye Evangelion, all that sort of stuff, right? And it's just like you could tell that as much as invested as everybody was in the story and the characters and this, the emotional ride that Evangelion can be, it was like a lot of people were looking forward to it ending, sort of thing. They were looking forward to being like watching it, enjoying it, and then being able to breathe a relief, because it is a lot to take in. It is a lot to take in.
Sorry, Celia, I didn't mean to invalidate what you're saying. It's true. Like it didn't give you a break. I just when you said that though, I needed to rant about that whole long wait that we had after that. I was just
is true.
I just wasn't expecting.
We did get that kind of break.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone expected we would wait 12 years.
No.
I mean, it's
one
not even
expected it would be
compared.
12 years,
It's not even compared to that first season of Attack of Titan, where it was only 4 years, compared to Evangelion. It's like, hold my beer.
Right?
They used to do things like this not in anime but in manga, right? I mean, didn't like some of the big manga stories like Akira and like even Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind, didn't it take like
there would be
over a decade or something like that for them to finish these stories and whatnot? Or
it's hard on that one creator to I mean, they have assistants and stuff like that, but you're really just a one-man team trying to get it together. And I guess it kind of like it's equal to what Ano goes through. I mean, he's the one that's really like putting this forward, so I don't know, it was worth it.
I think so. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
We'll talk about how worth it was on the next show.
Yeah.
When we finally tackle the big one. And it is the big one because it's the longest out of the movies. And they've actually been getting progressively longer with each installment. Like 3.0, even though like there are parts of it that move really fast, like that first third, and then it really takes its time with Kaworu, and then everything is just like really fast at the end as everything's culminating for the fourth impact. Like it's before Thrice Upon a Time, it was the longest Rebuild film. And because there's just so much more being added. Because even though all this characterization stuff is happening, like we didn't really touch on the lore and the world building that was also occurring at the same time in 3.0 to prepare us for what was to come in Thrice Upon a Time. Where you're adding in the drones and what has occurred to Tokyo 3 and really the entire world, and how the landscape has changed, how the atmosphere has changed, all these other things, because really the characterization is at the forefront. So you don't even realize it until you get to Thrice Upon a Time, just how much careful world building happened so that when you jumped right back into things in that final film, it doesn't feel as jarring as when we start at 3.0.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's quite frankly amazing, especially considering everything that goes on to prepare us for the final installment. Oh, it's such a good movie. I want to watch it again because I want to hear the dub cast, but at the same time, I don't know if my heart can take it. I don't know if I can take Kaworu being blown up for a third time. It'll make me really sad.
But you're going to watch it again and again.
Probably. Yeah.
For sure.
And I really think that one of the things that's nice about the rebuilds is that you can experience something similar to the TV series, but that's also quite different. So if you one day feel like, I want to watch Evangelion, you could put on the rebuilds and get similar feelings, not exactly the same because it's not the same experience, but you can have some similar moments of catharsis and similar moments of pathos.
I like that about it, that it's familiar, but not the same.
It's a movie that I remember like having problems with out of all the rebuild films. I just I loved the first two, and then the third one came along and I just seemed to just like not mesh with it the first time I watched it like years ago. And then came back and revisited it, and I was just like, again, it was like one of those typical Evangelion moments where it's like, you didn't really know what to think of it the first time around, and then you come back to it, fresh from a different perspective, knowing that you wanted to rewatch it for a while, and you can't really figure out why. Then you do, and lots of stuff starts connecting, and then you're like, oh man, it was just that. I think the big thing between the two first films and this film is like you just got so used to being on a ride. The first two films were paced in a certain way, and it felt good because so much of it was like storytelling and characterization were done on the fly, and they meshed well with the action, and you just loved that. You loved all of that coming together. And although the third film like really opens well with that first half hour, and it feels like that again, it just like slows right down, for the middle of the film, and you're like, you can't help but feel a little disappointed because you thought it was going to be another one of those same sorts of rides. But this is different, and it's different in a good way if you can just get over yourself as an audience, and get into what they're actually doing with the story and the characters, because if you do, it's so worth it. Like all that time that you spend with Shinji and Kaworu, like building relationship, character, talking about different things about each other and stuff like that, you need that, because if you don't have that and you get to the point where Kaworu's head explodes, you don't get anything. You have to have that buildup. You have to have those moments and stuff like that. And it's also like really good. Like I remember revisiting it and stuff, and it's just like I feel like similar to Celia, just like the emotions that you feel, like the amount of like the amount of like just interest and attraction you have for Kaworu because he's helping Shinji in such a way that nobody else has helped before. It's just like it's so awesome. It's such a breath of fresh air, in a series that can be like really like it can be just on edge all the time, and just like everybody just spitting nails at each other all the time, and Asuka just coming down on Shinji because he's useless, and Rei just like comatose and stuff like that. Just like it's always like you have these very abrasive character interactions and these very abrasive storylines for these characters, and then you just come to this point in the Evangelion series story where it's just like, man, these are two people that are just really getting along. They really like each other. This is a nice change of pace, and especially for a character that's gone through so much. And I think if people will look at it from that, if you haven't revisited the third film, if you had the reaction that I had and stuff, it's definitely worth revisiting, taking your time, and just really giving it a shot, because I think you'd really be rewarded. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have. I mean, the 12 years it's taken to get from film 3 to 4, I don't imagine there's many people that haven't at least given the third film a second chance.
Right.
So, but if you haven't, I just wanted to put that in there.
Yes. Go watch 3.0 again. It like and it's especially more satisfying after you've already seen the conclusion, because then you can go back and see how everything sets up for the next movie. Absolutely, and it does such a wonderful job of doing that, which actually brings us to the end of this discussion and wraps us up nicely to get ready for our next episode, where we finally discuss Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.01, Thrice Upon a Time.
Ooh.
The ultimate finale that everyone waited 12 years for is finally here.
It's gorgeous.
So we will be discussing that in the next episode. Yeah. So until then, we will see you guys later. Go watch 3.0. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys.